listen to your online safety advice. If this is your first time catching me live, I'm Cyber Farida. I'm an award-winning Forbes 30 under 30 internet safety expert. I have a background in cybersecurity, threat intelligence, but most importantly for this live, I have a background in being a teen online that gamed all the time. I've been gaming since I was 13 years old, and yeah, let's talk about it. The number one thing that I hear parents telling their kids, and that actually my mom, sorry for the shake, I had to move my thing. My mom told me this when I was like 13, and I never listened to her ever. I was just like, what are you talking about? Your advice makes absolutely zero sense, and I'm not listening to it. And as I'm talking to parents now, they're giving their gamer kids the same exact advice that my mother gave me, and they're like, Farida, like my kids are not listening. And I'm like, you know what? I hate to say this, but of course they're not listening. So the number one thing that you're probably telling your gamer kids, and when I say kids, I mean like 13, 14 and up. I'm not talking about your 10-year-old, but this still applies to your 10-year-old, but just understanding the gamer's mindset, especially if they're an online gamer. It's not like they're playing on their Nintendo Switch and it's an offline game or whatever it is. It is a game that they're able to communicate with other people. When you tell them to not talk to strangers online. And I know it sounds like, what do you mean? Like, this is the most innocent thing. It's the most basic safety precaution. I don't want them talking to somebody that I don't know, that they don't know. I don't want something to happen to them. I don't want them to be targeted. I don't want someone who doesn't mean well, or someone who's like 40 years old talking to my 15-year-old. And all of that is 100% understandable. I'm 1,000% on your side. But the reason why your gamer kid may not be listening to that advice is because the entire reason why they play the online game is so that they can communicate with other people for strategies and figuring out how to win the game. I'm not saying that's the only reason why they play. I'm saying in order for them to play the game, to get all of what the game entails, they have to talk to somebody. So for instance, let's think about like a soccer game, a basketball game, a baseball game, whatever it is. When someone is playing an activity like that, you need to communicate with your other teammates. Have you ever been to a soccer game where no one is able to talk? That's not going to work. The coach has to talk, the teammates have to talk, even the people on the opposite teams talk. And so in order to make sure that you're able to play the game and you're able to win the game, you have to turn to your teammate and say something. You have to do little huddles with strategy. All of that is a part of winning the game. There's never been a game in the history of games unless that, I mean, look, maybe there has been, let me not say that, but most of the time you'll never ever see, unless it's supposed to be silent for some random like thing, like a game show where they're like, we're gonna have a silent soccer game and see how this goes. But all games have an element of speaking to your teammates when it's a team game. If it's not a team game, right? So if it's like Jeopardy or whatever, and the only time you're speaking is to give the answers and you're not really conversing with somebody else, I haven't watched a Jeopardy episode where people were talking to each other, but maybe it is. I don't know. I can't remember. I haven't watched Jeopardy in like 5-6 years, but unless they change some things. But the point is that when kids are playing online games, in order to complete the game, in order to win the game, most likely they're going to have to be talking to their teammates. And even if it's a game where they don't necessarily have to talk to their teammates, so maybe it's a game where they're just walking around and they're building things or they're completing quests and they don't necessarily have to talk to somebody, sometimes speaking happens. And if other people are in the chat saying something, so let's just say someone's like, oh my God, I watched the latest episode of Euphoria in the chat. And your teen is like, I really like Euphoria, even though my parents hate it and they don't want me to watch it, but I watched it at my cousin's house on Christmas. And so I want to say something in the chat. And so it's a natural human thing to want to speak to other people inside of the game. And so when you're telling your kids to not speak to people, it's confusing to them many times because it doesn't make any sense for their reality. Now, for some kids, it does make sense. For some kids, they're like, yeah, why would I talk to somebody in this game? I don't know these people. I don't care about these people. I don't need to talk to them in order to have fun, so I will not. But I'm speaking to you about the gamer kids that play games that are some sort of strategy. And that is why they're not listening to you, because that doesn't make sense. The second reason is less about like communication and seeing things in a chat, but it's just someone, if you have a kid that really loves speaking to people, meaning they're very outgoing or they're very curious, maybe they're not like an extrovert, maybe they're an introvert, but they're very curious about other people. They like to know what they think, they like to know what they like to do, and they may want to speak to people that way. I was that kid. I was all of the examples I'm giving. I was also that teen where one, I was playing a game where it made absolutely zero sense that I could not talk to anybody because that's stupid. It was just stupid in my head as a teen. And then second was that there was communication going on in the chat. Will I just not speak? Like if I don't want to speak, I won't speak, but I wouldn't not speak because my parent told me not to speak, because that doesn't make any sense. If there is an interesting conversation going on and someone's talking about something that I like or I'm interested in, then I'm going to want to ask more questions. I had always been a bookworm. I had like 3,000 books growing up. Shout out to my mom. She's also a reader. She's a writer. And so I inherited my love of books from her. In the beginning, I did it. She was a little worried, but I started getting obsessed with books. And I read so many books. And one of the reasons why I loved books was because I was able to be opened up to a portal in a different world where I get to learn characters from different backgrounds and religions and cultures and different thought processes and experiences. And I thought that was so cool. Like all I had to do was just, and I go to my bookshelf, I pull out a book, I open up the book, and I'm transported into a whole new world. That was fascinating to me. I got lost in books for hours and hours and hours. This was before I became a gamer. Even though I was a gamer, I still read a lot of books, but school happens, life happens, and then you kind of you don't read as much as you wanted to anymore. But back then I was super into books. And so when I started playing online, when I got my first, well, I had my computer before, but when I had internet on the computer, when I got my phone, and when the mobile games started to come out, and it was like a frenzy. Everybody was like, oh my God, there's mobile games, like let's play. All of that. I was super excited because now this was like a digital book, but in real time, where it's not like I'm opening up a book and I'm reading, but I'm reading other people's experiences and thought processes and how they think and how they act. And I was fascinated by that. And so anytime something was going on in the chat or people were talking, we would talk, especially if it's a game that it takes a long time to complete. There are a lot of things that are little quests, I don't even know how to explain quests if someone doesn't know quests, but let me know if you want me to explain what quests are. But essentially, there are little assignments that you have inside of the game for you to complete. And sometimes an assignment in the game would take you to a next level. It would take 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and sometimes it would take 2 to 3 hours. And so you're in there trying to complete this assignment, and there's 6 other people who are completing the assignment. Naturally, you're going to have a conversation to pass by the time. And so for me, because I loved human beings, I love talking to them, that was one of the reasons why I talked to strangers online. And so when my parents found out about that, they were a little bit like, they were taken aback. It took a while for them. First of all, they didn't even know that certain games you could talk to people. And then also there are voice chats. So I got into voice chatting, and I was on TeamSpeak and Curse and Skype and all of the things, okay, and Hangouts and all. I don't even remember all the names of everything, but I really love that. That's one of the reasons why your teen might not be listening to your advice. So how do you get them to listen to your advice before I go to the second point? Number one thing is to understand their world. So instead of giving them advice that feels like out of nowhere, doesn't make any sense, is not connected to their real life, then how about giving them advice that is connected to their real life? Even though it feels like saying don't talk to strangers is connected, in their head it's not. So I'm just letting you know, from their point of view, it may not be connected. I'm not saying it's not connected to real life, because obviously it is, but in their mind, we're going back to teenage years, in their mind, it's not, doesn't make any sense. So let them lead you into their world. So ask them questions about how do you play the game, because maybe you have a child that's like, there's no freaking way I would be talking to a stranger online, and they're totally good and they're totally fine and it works for them. So just ask them. They may not be the child that is talking to somebody online that would, right? So ask them, like, how do you play the game? How do you like playing the game? Is there something about gaming that you think that I misunderstand and that you wish that I would understand? I would love to know, like, what games that you like to play, because maybe we can get more into it. Or maybe you're thinking about giving them a gift through the game. That's one way to get on your gamer kid's side is giving them Robux or getting them money within the game or in-game currency so they can get something nice inside of the game. So the more that you're able to connect with your gamer kid and understand their world, the better. You do not need to know this game in and out. You don't need to know exactly how it functions. You don't need to know all of every single feature inside of the game. All you have to know is, what does your kid like about it? What do they do in the game? What do they wish that you knew about the game? And your kid wants to know that you are on their side. Because if they are talking to strangers online, most likely they're forming connections, they're forming friendships, and sometimes they may even form romantic connections. I know, but yeah. Okay. So how can you be on their side so that no matter who they're talking to, they feel comfortable enough to speak to you about it without fear of you judging them, without fear of you making a snarky comment, without fear of you getting upset or mad or super, super worried that you take away their devices? They know that you're not going to love it, but at least if you're able to be there, cool, calm, and collected, when you mess up, when you slip up, when you say something you don't want to, you come back around and you say, hey, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I'm backtracking. I'm sorry, right? And that's what you say to them. It helps them realize, okay, they actually value our relationship. My parent actually values my relationship. My parent actually values my opinion, because you don't want them to feel like the only place they can be themselves, the only place they can have form connection and be loved and be appreciated and welcomed is through an online community that has people that are true people that are great, that might actually care about them, but also have people that are not. They don't think the best of them. They don't care about them. They're there to target them. They're there to see if they can push in any buttons in your kid, and you don't want that. And I'm censoring myself because I don't want this video to be taken down or whatever it is. But you want to make sure that your child knows that it's me and my parent against the world, and not my parent and I against each other. The more that your child is connected online and the less that you're connected, the more vulnerable your child is to people online that do not mean well and that want to target your child or other people's children. So the best thing that you want to focus on is, how do I connect with my child? Whether that's playing the game with them, if you don't have time for that, if you can, if you got motion sickness or the game is confusing, you're like, I don't like this, it's fine. You can just watch them play. And if you can't watch them play, again, with certain things, then hear them when they talk about the game, or ask them about the game and have conversations that are very casual. Don't add any tips, don't add any advice, don't add any reminders, don't add any guidelines in every single conversation. Every now and then you will have to do that. Every now and then I highly recommend that you add guidelines and reminders, but every single conversation should not be guidelines and rules and advice and, well, be careful, well, don't do that, because they're going to start tuning you out and they're like, wow, this is a broken record. There's no connection in this conversation. It's just, don't do this, don't do this, be worried, be careful. And they're just going to shut down. And we don't want that. We want connection. The second thing that you may be saying to your child that causes them to shut down and not listen to you, besides making snarky comments, besides saying, I don't get why you play this game, besides saying you need real friends, besides saying you should go outside, all of those comments are comments that are disconnecting comments. You want connecting comments. So if you want them to say, I want you to have more friends, be like, are there any people that you like to connect with at school? In your extracurricular activities, there's someone that you like to connect to. Is there like a gaming group that you can connect to outside of school that might be really cool? Like they all play Roblox, they all play Fortnite, they all play Overwatch or whatever it is. And you're using that as a way where your kid can form connections outside of just connecting with people online and just connecting with people at school, which some kids, there's nobody in school that they connect with. Maybe there's one person that they can like semi-connect with. So instead of making that comment, is there another connection comment that you can make? Instead of saying, why the hell do you spend so much time on the game? Can you say, what makes you love the game so much? I know that you spend a lot of time on it. Like I spend a lot of time on Facebook, or I like to spend a lot of time on Instagram, or I like to spend a lot of time watching Real Housewives. I see you really like this game. Like what about it makes you so excited? And in a way that's just a curious way. So that's like a side commentary, because I know that a lot of teens, then when they talk to me, and I know myself as a gamer teen, I felt that way, where any snarky comment made me feel like, who are you? I don't get this. I know that you say that you love me, but I don't feel the love because every single time there's a snarky comment. Now, my parent didn't always say that, but people say, every now and then there's something said, and then you feel some type of way about it. So try to keep that at a minimum. So the second thing that you say that makes your kids go, I'm not really sure, is that you should not tell people where you live. I know that sounds crazy, because why would anyone need to know where you live? So let me explain this, and this does not work for every teen. It's just some teens. And I know it from, again, my own experiences, but also talking with other teens. The second is saying don't tell them where you live. So let's just say that there's an event in the games. And if you don't know already, certain games have events. So think about it like if you're following somebody online, let's say you're following National Geographic, and they say, you know what, we are going to have an online meeting with all of our followers, like in a Zoom call or whatever. And it's going to be at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And other people are like, okay, what zone are you in, or what area do you live in, just to make sure that all of us are able to come at a certain period of time. So someone says, oh, I'm in Mountain Standard Time. Someone's like, oh my God, I'm in the UK. Someone's like, oh my God, I'm in Uganda. Another person's like, oh my God, I'm in Dubai. Another person's like, oh my God, I'm in Australia. And so everyone's trying to figure out, okay, what's the best time for us to do this? Because 7 p.m. Central Standard Time does not work for everybody. And that is what I mean by sometimes there are certain events that happen or certain connections that happen within games that are centered around a particular time. So if you're playing a team game for soccer and you're trying to figure out when can all of us meet, when can our schedules align, a lot of people will say, this is where I'm going. Now, I would tell your teen, if your teen has a game like that where they're talking to other people, they are part of a guild, they're part of a group of people, and guild essentially is just, think of it like a community of people that like to play the game together. It's like a team that they play. It's not necessarily a team, but for the sake of this, it's a team. Okay, it's a group of people that decide to be together, and they play together every now and then whenever they want to. And this group of people, sometimes they will want to meet in the game at a particular time. And so one of the ways people say where do you live is for that purposes. Now, sometimes it's innocent, other times it's not innocent. And so what you want to teach your teen instead of saying never tell people where you live, say never give your address, never give your country. But if you need to meet for a certain time, you can just say, I'll let you know when I'm available, or you can say I'm in this time zone. The time zone is the closest you should ever get to where you live. So you're giving them a little bit more details about how to operate in this space. Now, this is very challenging because how would you know this unless you are a gamer? How would you know how to approach this unless you are a gamer? And this is why I exist. Other people who talk about this exist, because we have experiences that are a little bit more nuanced and helps understand the teen's point of view and what you can do to guide them to better online safety decisions. So when you're telling them not to tell the address, tell them why. I don't want someone to be able to track you down. Now, if someone knows that you're in this state, you're in this country, they may be able to track you down. But if you say I'm in this time zone, well, that's a wider area and it's hard to pin that down. And so if you need to meet at a particular time with your guild, with your group, with your team, with your whatever, you can say I'm in this time zone. You don't have to say the area that you're in. You don't have to say anything that will allow them to pinpoint your location. Now, if you feel like, nope, in our family that I'm still uncomfortable with that, then just tell them, I understand that you may want to meet with people at a particular time. Just tell them I'm only available at that time. Or they can just pick a different time zone that has nothing to do with their time zone, and they can just convert it to their time zone. Whatever works for your family, so long as your kid is safe. But that is the second reason why your child may not be listening to you, is because there are certain situations that happen in the game where in that particular moment, they have like a split second or a couple of minutes to make a decision on whether or not they're going to give somebody a piece of information. And you want to be rehearsing those situations beforehand. And you want to make sure that you're empowering your teen to know that, okay, this is how I can reply to this. This is the reason why we're not saying this. So is there any way around saying information that can have someone easily target me, but also allow me to have fun in the game? So that's the second reason. I put a third, it's not necessarily a reason. Those are like the two main reasons why your kids are listening to you. Number one, don't talk to strangers online. Number two, don't tell people where you live. The third one is similar to the second caveat that I did, where the lack of connection, those disconnecting comments, so those snarky comments, those I don't get what the hell's happening comments. It's fine to not know what's happening. Obviously, you're not going to know. No one expects you to know. But being curious and having a curious comment and an interested comment and a what's going on, I really am interested in what you're doing because you spend a lot of time on it. It doesn't matter if the game bores you. It doesn't matter if you don't get it. The point is that you are showing interest by asking questions and being actually invested in their answers and how they experience things. And so it goes into saying, like, can you get off the game in 5 minutes? Look, if you told them to do chores, if you told them to do something, clean up your room, do your homework, something that they needed to do and they have not done it, and it's been like 30 minutes, or you told them to get off at a certain time and they're not getting off, completely different circumstance. That happens all the time. I'm talking about when it's like random, when something happens and you're like, get off the game in 5 minutes. Their process is like, I can't get off the game in 5 minutes. And then the next thing is, well, just pause the game. It's totally fine. You don't need to be playing this game right now. And they're like, well, I'm in the middle of a soccer game. I can't just leave the field, Mom. I need to be able to finish the game and then I can leave the field. And so when they're saying that to you, they're not actually being rude. They're being real. They're in the middle of a soccer game. Something is going on. If they leave the game at this particular point, they're leaving their team high and dry, and their team does not know what to do next because they're like, oh, we lost a player. And with these games, there isn't somebody on the bench that can come up and start playing the game. So in their mind, they're like, this doesn't make any sense. Now, knowing that information that you can't pause all games, some games you can pause, but other games you cannot pause. So telling them, look, I need you off the game at this particular time. So whatever you need to do, make sure that the last game that you have is done by this time. Otherwise, you're gonna have to leave the game. I know that you don't want to leave the game, but you have to manage your time well, because I need you down for dinner. I need you to take the trash out. I need you to do your homework. I need you to finish doing your something that you told me that you're gonna do. I need you to watch your sister. Whatever it is that you said that you wanted them to do, you're helping them manage their time. So you're saying, I get that this game typically is each soccer game, so to speak, soccer game analogy, each soccer game is 10 minutes. Each soccer game is 15 minutes. Each soccer game is 45 minutes. If that's true, and there's an hour left to do this thing, then that means that don't play another game. Just don't play another game. So those are ways that you can understand what their experiences online, but still protect them. And so the only reason why you would know any of what I'm talking about is if you're able to have open, honest conversations with your teens about their experiences. So that's why I always say, ask them, is there something that I tell you to do that doesn't make any sense for your experiences in the game? Don't feel overwhelmed that, oh my God, how am I gonna know all the little intricacies and nuances of gaming? It's fine. Ask them. Is there some online safety guideline, rules, screen time rule, whatever it is that I've told you thus far, or you don't have to say thus far, but you know what I'm saying, that I told you so far that when you heard it, it didn't make any sense to you because that doesn't work out for the game that you're playing? Is there anything that I've said to you about the game that you wish I wouldn't say anymore? Is there anything that you wish I knew about the game that I do not know? Is there those are the conversations and those questions that you want to ask so that you can get a little bit deeper into their experiences with you when it comes to safety. The more you're able to have these conversations, the better you are able to protect your gamer kids online. And I trust me, they're going to start listening to you more than they were listening to you before. The more you start getting curious and open and honest and non-judgmental and just like, hey, I'm just here to understand what's going on, the better you are in terms of protecting your kid on the game. If you have any questions, let me know. My entire channel is helping you protect your children online. Go check out my channel. I did a lot of videos on Discord, Snapchat, Minecraft, Roblox, protecting your gamer kids in general. A lot of things you need to know as a gamer parent. Have an amazing day, and till next time.